So are Democrats feeling the burn again? According to a new Politico report, some major party players think that Bernie Sanders could win the nomination. So what would a Trump-Sanders battle look like? Let's get the read from Patrice Onwuka. She's with the Independent Women's Forum and Democratic Strategist Kevin Chavous. Patrice, let me start with you. You know, this was a battle many people thought we should have had in 2016. And, you know, because of the way the Dems treated Bernie Sanders, a lot of those Bernie bros actually voted for President Trump.
Well, it's true. I mean, I think there is a core support for Bernie Sanders, and there's some who probably flipped and did vote for President Trump. In this potential rematch, though, I don't see Bernie Sanders drawing a lot of new additional supporters. And when you look at some of the different early primary states, you see that in some states he's doing well. The further north he does well, but the further south, like South Carolina, Florida, and Arizona, he's really underwater when you compare him to Trump, and that's because he's not gaining a lot of new support.
I tell you what, though, in the primaries so far, Kevin, after that heart attack or heart scare, if you will, a lot of folks were writing off Bernie Sanders, and I think he's gotten stronger there. I think he's gotten crisper. It seems like he's rejuvenated, and his poll numbers look even a little better.
He's resilient. That's what we have been able to tell and pick up based on his performance. I mean, I think also he's benefited from the fact that other candidates had sort of their 15 minutes of fame and sort of dropped off. Beto O'Rourke was hot for a hot second, then he dropped out of the race. Kamala Harris had her spike earlier in the spring. She dropped out. Warren, of course, surged to number 2 in a lot of polls, and she has dropped off. And one constant has been Bernie Sanders, who has remained right around second place. We know he's got a very rabid base of supporters. They have stood by him, particularly among younger voters, and that's really where his base is strongest. But again, like Patrice said, in the South, he struggled. He didn't win, I don't think, any of the southern states in 2016. He hasn't really made inroads in that area. And it's going to be tough to overtake Joe Biden without some type of drastic improvement in those states, in my opinion.
But I will say this, maybe, Patrice, to a degree, Bernie can already claim victory. I mean, think about his platform in 2016 and how many establishment Democrats said it was radical, it was too far left. And now it feels like every candidate, including Biden to a degree, taking pieces of what Bernie Sanders put out there. It feels like this is his platform, whether he wins or not.
Well, I think you're right, Charles. I think there's been a pretty far left turn in the Democratic Party and the left in general to embrace Medicare for all, which was a fringe idea. I mean, frankly, Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act was considered socialism, and now we see how actually not socialist it is. I mean, it certainly is, but still, it's not as bad as Medicare for all is. And now, that's not to say that Americans have wholeheartedly embraced everything that Bernie Sanders stands for, but the party has certainly had to embrace it, and especially since he's latched his wagon to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, which is kind of the new far-left energy of the party. He certainly kind of, I think, received a boost from that support, from her kind of support. Let
me switch gears for a second, Kevin, because former Vice President Joe Biden still getting some grief over those comments he made last week at the debate, saying it was okay for blue-collar workers to lose their jobs as part of the green energy part of this thing. I mean, how can that play out well in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Ohio? It just seems like a real serious problem. And by the way, Hillary made a similar mistake.
Look, I don't think that Joe Biden should talk like that. He should make the point differently, particularly because those statements will resonate in states that Democrats absolutely have to win in 2020, or in order to win in 2020, as you mentioned, those states in the Midwest. But I would counter your point by saying if Joe Biden's statement is such a problem, I mean, look at Bernie Sanders, who is somebody who has touted the Green New Deal and who wants to go even further to the left in a lot of ways than Joe Biden. And I agree with some of Bernie Sanders' positions, but if Joe Biden's going to struggle because of his positions, I would think that Bernie Sanders has a much tougher hill to climb for similar reasons, because he's talking about the Green New Deal.
At some point, someone's going to be a general election candidate, and you can't talk about taking jobs from the 2 highest job categories in this country. Kevin, Patrice, thank you both very much.
Thank you, Charles.
Hey, did you ever try and sneak a peek at the Christmas gift under the tree? Looks like we've been doing that with North Korea. Got the details for you next.